guys, and welcome back. On this week's show, I've got this old drawer that I need to resize, and I'm going to be using some dado cuts for the assembly. So I thought, perfect opportunity to put a video together showing you guys how to go about setting up a set of stacked dado blades. So the first step in changing any blade setup, whether you be changing from a cross cut to a ripping blade or from a normal blade to a dado blade, you've heard me say it 1,000,001 times. Reach over, unplug the saw, and give the power switch a quick on and off to make sure that there is no power to the machine. We've established that the power is off. Now you want to remove your throat plate insert. Now my saw just has one screw that holds it in, but I'm sure that you're no stranger to removing your throat plate, and you know best how to remove your own. After removing the throat plate, you want to jack the blade up as far as she'll go, and then from there remove your existing blade to expose the bare arbor. You want to measure the thickness of the dado that you need, and this is a scrap of the material that I want to make the dado for, and when measuring it, it's approximately 3/4 of an inch. And I say approximately because there's a lot of variances when it comes to wood. So we're going to set up the dado for 3/4 of an inch. Now I've got a Freud dado set up here, so check your setup. It should come with a chart to tell you how many of the blades and how many of the chippers you need to install in order to get a 3/4 inch dado. In this case, I need both the inside and the outside blades, and I need 4 of the large chippers. So we're going to start with the inside blade that goes closest to the arbor. So here we've got the correct blade that we're going to place first. You want to check for the proper rotation. In this case, there's an arrow on the blade, but the teeth want to cut towards you, no different than any other saw blade. And most of them will say this side out or something to that effect. So place the blade onto your arbor and slide it all the way in, tightly onto the arbor. At this point in time, you're going to need your chippers. So I'm just going to get those out and place those on the arbor as well. And if you remember, we need 4 of them. When placing the chippers onto your arbor, you'll want to do them in a crisscross pattern like I've got these two here. You want to make sure that none of the teeth are going to touch. So we'll do the crisscross pattern and add the 4 chippers in place, and then I'll explain a few things to you as we go along. I've added some extra light here. Hopefully you can see this okay. We have our main blade here, and now we're going to place our first chipper, making sure that the tooth alignment is going the correct way towards the operator. We're going to slide that onto the arbor, and what you want to do is make sure that the tooth of the outside blade goes between these blades of the chipper. Once you get that in place, rotate it 90 degrees and add another chipper. And again, the same thing that you did with the first one. Make sure that this blade, this tooth on this blade here, aligns between the blades of the chipper. And then rotate it 90 degrees. We know that we need 4 chippers, so we're going to add another one. And when you add this one, now you want the tooth of the previous chipper to go between this gap that's on the new chipper that's placed. These gaps that are here for a reason, and it's to give you seating for your next tooth. Then we're going to rotate it again 90 degrees. Hopefully with all this touching the blades and your hands down inside here, you guys can see exactly why we unplug it. And here we have it with the blade, again with the previous tooth in between the gap on the new one that you've laid. Now that's our 4 chippers, and now we need to put our outside blade in, making sure of course that your rotation is going the correct way and that the proper side is facing out. So we're going to place that on there, and of course again, no different than before, the tooth of the outside blade is going between that gap on your chippers. Now, in this case with the rigid saw, the retaining washer doesn't fit once you start getting into larger size dados. So we're just going to put on the retaining nut. Once that you've got this just finger tight, this is the important part that a lot of guys don't pay attention to, and they end up wrecking their blades. You want to spin the blade slowly and ensure that no tooth is touching any other steel member of that blade. It's very important that they are not touching, because when this saw starts up, if they're touching and you've caused a bit of a gap, not only will your cut be horribly off, but if those blades shift, it'll shear the teeth right off your blade, and then this whole assembly here is junk at that point. Well, I've snugged down the blade, and as I've done it, something has shifted. Before you ever make a cut, you want to double check these blades to make sure that no steel is on steel. And this is something that happens from time to time. When I tighten this nut, the outside blade shifted with the tightening of the nut, and now I've got this tooth here tight up against the steel of this blade, and that's not good for that carbide tooth. So I'm going to loosen this off and then reset them so that they've got that gap again. So I've loosened this off. I have reset the gap between my teeth and my grooves, and I'm just gonna go through each one and ensure that no tooth is touching any other part of steel. And we have this now, so we're good to go to do a test cut on this blade. Before you make your test cut, you want to put your zero clearance insert back in. Now this one's been cut for a 3/4 dado, and I'll go into how to go about that on another show. But don't forget your clearance insert. So now comes the test fit. And what we've got here is, you can see our dado is cut, and it's just these are just scraps just to test. But when placing this scrap board in here to see how it fits, it's all the same material. This is quite sloppy, and in a lot of cases this is where the problem starts with woodworking. Some guys would say this is good enough, or you won't notice that, it's not good enough. Do you want quality work, or do you want to be a hack? This is where the decision comes in now. If you want to be a hack, leave this, because it'll be good enough. If you want to be a woodworker, don't accept this. So what do? Well, now you got to go through the whole process again of setting up your dado blade. And in this particular case, because it's too large, now we have to drop it down to the next size and shim the blades out. And this is a pain in the neck, but well worth it in the end. So we're back at the saw, and as you saw, it's a sloppy fit. So now we're going to readjust to the next size down, which in this case I believe is 23/32. And the difference for that in the Freud setup is the difference between one chipper. So we'll remove one of the large chippers and put in the small chipper, and then once we get that set up, following the same procedure we already went through, we're going to do another test cut and see how well it fits then. You know guys, I've mentioned this in the past in another video, but I'm going to mention it here again. Don't place your blades directly on your cast iron tabletop. It's not good for them, and it can damage some of the teeth. Carbide is brittle. Don't be slapping it down on the steel. Get a piece of wood to sit it on, or raise it up as I've done here. So either way, we're going to change our setup here in this dado blade setup. Okay, well you guys probably saw that even in fast motion. How ironic is that I give you guys a little speech on taking care of your blades and not damaging them on the iron, and then I drop mine down into the dust collection. Well done. Oh well, only human, boys. Anyway, get your zero clearance back on there and do another test cut now that we've got our set back up for the next size lower. Okay, so we've done our test cut, and here's our old one that's sloppy and hackish, and here's our new one which is too tight and now the board doesn't fit in. And this is all part of the process of setting up your dado blade. Now we're going to go with the shims. So I'm going to run through two types of shims that I have that I use, and we'll go from there. Okay, so now our slot is too small. No big deal. Nothing to be concerned about. So now we have to shim the blades out. And what we can do is we can use these type of shims, which are just the solid metal type, in which case you have to take your entire blade assembly off of the arbor and then slide these shims on, do a test cut, and see how she works for you. The other type I have is a little kit like this. You know what, I'll put a picture of it right here. Okay, and this is, I got these at Lee Valley, surprise, surprise, and they're made by Veritas, and they are plastic shims, and they've got a slot in them so that you don't have to actually take all your blades off the arbor. You can just slide these between and they'll pop onto your arbor. So I actually prefer these. So we're going to slide one of these shims in and do another test cut, and we'll see how it goes from there. Okay, so here's the deal. I did that cut and it was still too tight. So off camera, you guys don't need to see me adjust it again. I added another shim and now I'm testing it, and it is perfect. It is bang on. It fits beautifully, which means that it's going to be a higher quality project. Now let me just say, you don't have to go through this setup every time. What you can do in this particular case is, when it comes to stacked dado blades, make yourself a storyboard, so to speak, with a piece of wood similar to this, and set up your dado blade with each individual setup, with both just your outside blades, then your outside blade and one chipper, and then two chippers, and three, and four, and then your small chipper, and then just your chipper, your mini one with the two outsides. Never run it just a chipper. And write on that board, with each single piece or each cut that you make, what the setup was. And in this particular case, if I were to write on here for this storyboard, this would be 3 large chippers, 1 small chipper, and in this case I use 2 of the black shims, which are 0.02 inches. So next time you have your board that you're working with, you can take your storyboard and try to slide it into all of your storyboard slots. When you get to one that either it's almost fitting, or it fits perfectly, or it's just a little too big, back up one and then see where it fits. And then you can either just add one shim, or you might have already the perfect setup on your storyboard and you just have to set up your blades like that. So taking a little bit of time and doing some prep and making a storyboard is a great way to lessen some of the frustration of these setups. And there you have it. Dado setup made easy. And remember, when it comes to your woodworking, if you want to be sloppy, hit it where you want. If you want to be a woodworker, take the extra time and effort and you can hit it on the mark every time. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you next week with another woodworking video.